Lights inside the massive theater burned hot, but the man standing at the center of the stage felt cold all over. His name was Daniel Reyes, a 32-year-old Filipino mechanic who had never imagined his life stretching beyond the small coastal town where he grew up. His hands, rough from years of fixing engines, trembled slightly as he held the microphone. From the judge's table, Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes sharp with skepticism. He had seen thousands of singers walk onto this stage claiming they were different. Most were not. The audience buzzed softly, already guessing this would be another forgettable audition. Daniel swallowed hard, took a breath, and waited for the music to start. Daniel's journey to this moment had begun decades earlier in a wooden house near the sea in the Philippines. Electricity came and went, but music was always there. His father, a fisherman, owned one prized possession, an old radio wrapped in tape to keep it from falling apart. Late at night, after the waves calmed and the town slept, Daniel would sit beside that radio and listen to stations from faraway places. One night, a voice unlike any he had ever heard poured through the static. It was deep, smooth, powerful, and aching all at once. The announcer said the name Elvis Presley. Daniel didn't understand the English words, but he felt the emotion. Something inside him shifted forever. As a child, Daniel began imitating that voice in secret. He sang softly while fixing nets with his father or while walking alone along the shore. Singing out loud felt dangerous, almost embarrassing. In his town, dreams were practical. You worked, you survived, you helped your family. Singing was not a future. Still, Elvis became Daniel's invisible companion. When his mother passed away suddenly from illness, it was Elvis he sang to, quietly, holding back tears so his younger siblings wouldn't hear him cry. Music became his shelter. Years passed, and Daniel grew into responsibility instead of dreams. He moved to Manila, trained as a mechanic, and later found work overseas. Eventually, he landed in the United States, sending money home every month, promising himself he would return someday. Life in America was harder than he expected. Long hours, language barriers, loneliness. After work, he would sit in his small rented room, play Elvis songs on his phone, and sing just loud enough to hear his own heart beating. Sometimes his neighbors knocked on the wall, telling him to keep it down. He always apologized. One evening, everything changed. A coworker overheard Daniel humming while fixing a truck and froze mid-step. The man stared at him and said, half joking, "Bro, you sound like Elvis." Daniel laughed it off, but the coworker insisted. Within days, Daniel found himself singing at a small backyard party. People stopped talking. Phones came out. Someone uploaded a short clip online. Daniel didn't know it then, but that clip would quietly begin traveling across the internet, finding its way to people who recognized something rare. Months later, Daniel received an email he thought was a scam. It invited him to audition for a major singing competition. His first instinct was fear. He was too old. His accent was too strong. His life was too ordinary. He nearly deleted the message. But that night, he dreamed of his mother smiling, sitting beside an old radio, nodding as Elvis sang. When he woke up, Daniel replied yes. Back on the stage, the music cue finally came. A soft guitar intro filled the hall. Daniel closed his eyes. When he opened his mouth, the sound that emerged didn't belong to the nervous man standing there. It was rich, controlled, and hauntingly familiar. The first line echoed through the theater, and a wave of silence swept the audience. Simon Cowell's eyebrows lifted slightly. One judge leaned forward. People exchanged looks, unsure of what they were hearing. As Daniel continued, the resemblance became impossible to ignore. It wasn't a cheap imitation. It wasn't karaoke. It felt like Elvis had been reborn in a new body, carrying decades of longing and struggle in every note. Daniel's voice cracked at just the right moments, not from weakness, but from truth. The crowd began to react, not with screams, but with stunned disbelief. Halfway through the song, Simon uncrossed his arms. Then came the first twist. Daniel suddenly stopped singing. The music continued for a second before cutting off. The audience murmured, confused. Daniel lowered the microphone and took a shaky breath. He apologized, explaining that the song reminded him of his mother, and for a moment, he thought he couldn't go on. Many assumed the audition was over. Simon sighed, expecting another emotional collapse. But Daniel looked up again, wiped his eyes, and said softly that his mother loved Elvis, even though she never understood the words. He wanted to finish the song for her. Without waiting for permission, he started again, this time without music. His raw voice filled the room, even more powerful without instruments. This was not Elvis anymore. This was Daniel. The emotion hit like a punch. People in the audience wiped their eyes. One judge pressed a hand to her mouth. When the final note faded, the silence lasted longer than the song itself. Then the theater exploded. The crowd rose to its feet, applause crashing like thunder. Simon Cowell stood up slowly, shaking his head. He looked genuinely unsettled, as if something he believed impossible had just happened in front of him. Simon spoke carefully, choosing his words. He said he had heard Elvis impersonators his entire life and disliked most of them. But this was different. This was a man who didn't just sing like Elvis, he understood why Elvis mattered. That comment alone sent chills through the room. Daniel stood there, stunned, barely processing what was happening. But the story didn't end there. Days later, as the audition clip aired, the internet erupted. Millions watched. Comments poured in from around the world. Some accused him of being fake. Others claimed it was studio magic. A few even said Elvis's voice had been digitally layered. Daniel felt overwhelmed. For the first time, his gift brought not only love, but doubt and suspicion. The second twist came when producers revealed Daniel would have to sing a completely different genre in the next round. No Elvis. No safety net. Critics were sure this would expose him. Even Daniel doubted himself. He had spent his whole life leaning on Elvis to survive. Who was he without that voice guiding him? On the night of the next performance, Daniel walked out alone, no guitar, no band. He sang a Filipino ballad his mother used to hum while cooking. Most of the audience didn't understand the language, but they didn't need to. The emotion was universal. The song built slowly, then soared. By the final note, people were crying openly. Simon didn't speak right away. When he did, he admitted something rare. He said he had been wrong to doubt that true artistry could come from unexpected places. Daniel's journey continued, filled with pressure, fame, and moments of self-doubt. But no matter how far he went in the competition, the real victory had already happened. A man who once sang in whispers had found the courage to be heard by the world. He wasn't just channeling Elvis anymore. He was honoring the music that carried him through grief, poverty, and loneliness. In the finale, Daniel returned to Elvis one last time, not as an impersonator, but as a tribute. As he sang, images of his childhood, his mother, and his journey played behind him. The performance ended with the entire audience standing, not because they heard Elvis, but because they heard the story of a man who refused to let his dream die quietly. Today, Daniel still calls himself a mechanic at heart. He says music didn't change who he is, it revealed who he always was. His story reminds us that talent knows no borders, dreams don't have expiration dates, and sometimes the most powerful voices come from the most unexpected places.